Hey everyone, welcome to this great session. We're going to talk for about 35 minutes about the challenges of influencers and from the brand side as well as the vendor side, and just a discussion around what is influence, how it works, what's important, how can brands prioritize partnering and working with different influencers. And, I've been invited by a good friend of mine, Sarbjeet here, who is located here in Silicon Valley, who has worked at several very large technology SaaS companies up and down the peninsula here in Silicon Valley. And then Tim Williams, who is the CEO of Onalytica, is a platform that I have used and I'm very fond of as well. And, I'd love to just say, maybe start off by, introducing ourselves, and then we'll jump right into the discussion. My name is Michael Brito. I lead analytics at Zeno Group, which is an agency. I've been in this space for many years, born and raised in Silicon Valley, and have worked at large companies internally as an employee. Intel and HP were early in my career. And now I consult with large technology SaaS companies as well, deploying different types of influencer programs as well as analytics projects. So I'm also joined by Sarbjeet and Tim. And Sarbjeet, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, Michael, thanks. Thanks, Tim, as well for joining us today. This is Sarbjeet. I've been in technology for the last 26, 27 years. I started my career as a developer, and then I developed a lot of software working with at McDonald's headquarters, McDonald's Corporation, writing marketing applications. And I moved to Visa International, which is a credit card processor, actually. And then after that, I went to company called Commerce One. It used to be B2B Darling of .com days, and then after that I went to EMC, VMware, Rackspace, and then Oracle. So actually in between I worked at PeopleSoft as well, which became Oracle, and I left. And then my second tenure was Oracle. So I worked with many vendors, as Michael said, and I have developed software, have developed platforms as well, applications as well as platforms, and have deployed those in 10 plus countries while traveling to mainly in Europe, right, and North America. So I work in that capacity, working with a lot of other SIs and stuff like that. So I've been around, and lately, actually, for last about 4 or 5 years, I've been focused on sort of synthesizing all that I've learned in all these years, and how the industry progresses. And I traversed in cloud for the last 12, 13 years or so. So I try to synthesize all this information and talk about it. And in that process, some brands have engaged me in their events and stuff like that. So in that context, I've worked with Michael a couple of times, and I see the challenges in this B2B influencer sort of space, and we'll talk about that. Sorry, it's a long intro.
No, it's funny. Real quick though, like it's you are somebody that we would consider an influencer, right? As I represent my clients, we use algorithms and technology to identify individuals like yourself, and so it's just interesting. We have three different dynamics here. We have someone who is working on behalf of clients to deploy programs. We have somebody like yourself who we may collaborate with, and then we have Tim, who's the infrastructure that provides that that level of an analysis as well as engagement with influencers. So, Tim.
Great. Thanks very much. And a pleasure to be here. So I'm Tim Williams. I'm the CEO of Onalytica. We're an influence marketing and employee advocacy software platform. We also provide some supporting professional services and consultancy. And really, my passion is on connecting brands and influence communities together. I've been running Onalytica for the past 7 years. So thanks for having me, and looking forward to diving into the conversation.
Yeah, great. Well, yeah, I've been a huge fan of Onalytica as well, and have used it and have seen the back end, and excited about what you just announced, my Onalytica, which is the marketplace. Can you just spend a couple minutes just talking quickly about how it works and maybe the vision behind it?
Yeah, thanks. So as you were saying, Michael, I know you as Brito, but I know that other people,
whatever people,
Michael
yeah.
Brito.
That's fine.
There are tons of B2C influencer marketplaces in the industry, and we focused on B2B. We wanted to drive innovation in that particular space, and so My Analytica is really just enabling brands to connect with influencers who are verified by us, who are ready to go and collaborate with brands. But I think on a personal level, there's just so many different people that are influential in different capacities. So really we wanted the influencer or the expert to be able to define who they are and what they're motivated by, so that people don't have to do so much research and they can just easily collaborate and partner with relevant influencers. So it's really kind of like the match.com for brands and influence communities. We talked about Amazon or eBay. Like we're just trying to bring technology so that people can collaborate better, with the expressed intention of creating more inspiring content. And brands have different objectives, and they can use that through virtual events, ABM strategies, PR strategies, demand gen, awareness, whatever their use cases are. But it's just designed to make that initial collaboration and the management process that bit easier.
Yeah. And I think just to level set, there's on the consumer side, B2C specifically, you know, there are about 30 plus software providers that provide some type of identification platform, campaign management for brands. And on the B2B side, there's one, which is you. And so, and I wanted Sarbjeet to know that as well, because I think that's just an interesting kind of variable from my opinion. I think there's a lot of room for innovation there. And I think part of that lack of interest on the technology side to build platforms like Onalytica is the fact that B2B marketing in general, as well as influencer marketing, doesn't get a lot of attention, right? As much as the large consumer brands like Nike and, you know, car manufacturers. And so there's a lot of media. There's a lot of articles. There's also a lot of criticism, right? When there's been stories after stories where influencers are paid millions of dollars and promoting t-shirts and they only sell 10, or the fact that some influencers go rent, you know, beautiful cars, take pictures of it, and it's really not true. You know, it's not authentic. So I think there's also that negativity perspective around, you know, hiring influencers, because it's not all authentic and not all influencers are transparent. So on the flip side as well, on the B2B side, you know, that's good because, you know, you can't just sell a data center, right? You can't sell software. You can't do that. But when you think about the buyer's journey and how buyers are, you know, how they go through these different phases of, you know, research and, you know, getting feedback from colleagues and friends and Googling and reading white papers, there's this opportunity to, and I'm going to put my marketing hat on for a second, intercept the conversation and try to influence that conversation to go, you know, one way or another. And so that is just, I want to just kind of level set that perspective, because I think that is an important, that's important to talk about. And I think influence in general, would love to just kind of, you know, Sarbjeet, just get your perspective on, you know, you are an influencer, whether or not you define yourself as one. You are, people look at you and you have a very large group, a network of other influential individuals. And what's your perspective on, you know, the influencer kind of landscape in general? How do you, you know, you've been we've partnered together in full transparency. We've collaborated on behalf of some clients, but what's your thoughts on influencer marketing?
Yeah, I think it's a very challenging space, to be honest with you, in B2B space, especially in B2B, in sort of tech side of the B2B, if you will. But the B2B is a very vast thing as well, right? So the reason being, like, most of the people are attached to a vendor in some sort of capacity, like they're employees there, right? And they're doers there. They can be employee of, you know, Facebook, Google, when you talk about scaling systems and stuff like that, and then they can't openly talk about that stuff in many ways. But it also is that, and the second thing is, like, people are afraid to talk, even if they could talk, they don't want to. When you are an employee of a vendor, right, you can talk at the industry level, not much problem, but you can't associate yourself with the vendor. So the I think commercialization of that sort of moonlighting or that kind of is very, very tedious problem. If you leave that full-time association with an employer, and then you want to be vendor neutral, it's very challenging. And then you look like an analyst. There are a lot of independent analysts, and that's why you see a lot less people out there who are doing this. It's it's not almost financially viable in many cases. If okay, that's big if you want to be vendor neutral when you talk. And to me, actually being staying a purist, if you will, it's very challenging. So if I work with vendor A, they're singing some song about their products and all that stuff, and they're doing press releases around that, around their events and all that stuff. I think just saying what they're saying is I find that meaningless, right? You have to talk about what are the challenges um, practitioners are facing. They can be creators or operators, both, right? And how do we address those challenges, where we have been. So you have to create the history. Actually creates that relatability. When we talk about history, people get behind you, they're willing to listen to you, that this person knows what are my problem, my industry, and stuff like that. I think it's a bit challenging, to be honest with you, but I think there's a lot of room though for such expertise. I have thought about many times about creating a Silicon Valley experts network, if you will. I even registered a domain. It's full form, like it's a long domain name, Silicon Valley Experts Network. And the idea is to disperse that knowledge to the greater world. So how do we scale systems? How do we build systems here? What are the challenges in that? Plugging into academia on one side, and think tanks on the other, and industry that is a third tier. And another idea recently, I think we have discussed that, is maybe building a think tank, of influencers, like,
Yeah.
which works with the lawmakers and governance, if you will, technology governments at country level, which is a big topic in itself. But
So I think you've raised some really important points. Like how I see the almost like the Venn diagram working is that you've got the long buying journey because you've got these products which cost a lot of money. So that's obviously one of the big factors in why there are lots of influential decision makers here. I think there's a lot of studies now out from Forrester and Gartner that there's over 15 decision makers in the B2B process from many different parts of the organization. So obviously it's complex. And then subject you were talking about moonlighting, or like there's other people appearing as independent analysts, and what we see at Onalytica is that the best results work when it's thought leadership focused. I know that some people don't like the word thought leadership, but the content has to be inspiring the industry to innovate or to solve some of their challenges, because no one really wants to hear about someone that prefers one product to another. So product marketing is dead as far as I'm concerned. That's more of a sort of a B2C product advertising play. This is much more of a industry thought leadership, and what you talked about was also bringing community. So we see community, agile thought leadership, and the long buying process like coming together. And I think when you look at the influencers or experts that we're seeing, you're completely right. You're seeing independent analysts now, you're seeing consultants, creators, industry experts. They're all coming up in different forms. And if you can leverage those voices and expertise and create the best content in the industry, then you can tie that back as a brand to the buying journey. You can sell more product and services over the longer term. But I think it's really, really important. And some of the industry still doesn't quite get it, that it's not about shouting that your product is better. It's about leveraging the really authentic expertise that you've got, Sarbjeet, in your particular area, so that people really enjoy consuming your content and you've got wonderfully engaged audiences. So I think that's where the market is advancing, and that's where there's lots of these new influential voices cropping up, and that's where the opportunity is, I think.
Well, you brought up you
yeah,
brought up a good point, Sarbjeet, about this idea of employees of a company, whether it's a technologist or a finance person who is, you said moonlighting, in a way, and I get it, because I worked internally and I got in trouble sometimes for saying things that I shouldn't say, and I was closely monitored. I think now that we're here in 2021, it's a little bit different, right? It's more, companies are being a little bit more transparent and open to employees engaging and talking about, not giving away secrets, certainly, but talking about issues, whatever those may be. And Google had an issue not too long ago, and just with an employee, and I'm not going to get into details, but it kind of blew up in a way, and it was within the tech AI community. I'm not sure if you remember that story, but the idea of, Tim, you mentioned employee advocacy, right, and influencer marketing, and it's like, if you, on the surface level, they're two completely different things, right, and it's most likely owned internally by two different organizations. Maybe employee advocacy is in HR or internal employee comms. Maybe it's in marketing, and influencer marketing could very well be in PR or marketing. So it might not be in the same job function. But when I look at it, I don't look at it as two independent work streams. I look at them as opportunities, because we've been talking about the journey, right? I would much rather engage with someone who works for a company at a vendor that I'm thinking about investing in or purchasing software, because I trust him or her, because we trust each other, and they're not trying to influence me through marketing, right? I'm not getting inundated with buy this because of this. It's more like, we use this because it helps solve these top 3 technology problems, and let's have a call, let's talk about it. And so the idea of connecting and using employees as influencers, and then also connecting influencers to employees, maybe at the seniorish level, to do what we call influencer mapping, I think is a huge opportunity. Tim, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're 100% right, Brita, and what's really interesting to me is the fact that they're not connected in 95% of the organizations that we speak to. And because it's on a functional level, you're completely right. Marketing might not talk to PR or digital or social, and then there's employee advocacy. And if I say to someone in influencer relations or marketing, are you going to connect your execs to this program, or are you going to share the influencer generated content in the employee advocacy tool that you have? Often they don't know the answer. They're just not connected. And it's shocking, because what we've lost sight of is the fact that they're just people. They're just an expert talking to an expert, creating amazing content. And when they get together in virtual events or industry roundtables, and it's offline, they have this most amazing conversation that everyone would love to hear, and no one's hearing it. And marketing are not leveraging that. And so, yeah, I mean, we are focused on trying to bring exec comms, employee advocacy, SME advocacy together with influence relations, influence marketing. But it's also just an extension of PR and analyst relations, and everything is merging. But when you're a big brand, you've got to hire people in different roles. And so I think that, there's so many challenges, because when you actually ask people in marketing or sales, is your marketing working? Is your sales working? They all think it's broken. They, and so there are just so many challenges. In B2C, it's relatively simple, right? You can just, track whether one influencer is getting you more product sales, by like pushing their Instagram posts or something like that. There's almost a wonderful simplicity, which also is sometimes less interesting, I think, to all of us three. But in B2B, you've got the opposite challenge of so many nuances. So I think it's a wonderful space for innovation, but there's just so many years of growth and maturity in the market.
Yeah, I think the minute you can smell that a piece of content is salesy, you eject. You do, like I do. I mean, I know, like I like when people talk at the problem domain level. Like I just love those talks. They never mention their almost never mention their company name or the brand name where they work, and whenever they mention any brand names in their technology brand names, in this case, right, B2B, it's in a very good faith, if you will. They're not trying to promote them, right? They're trying to give examples of some vendors who are doing that kind of stuff, right? So I think it goes a long way. Authenticity is the key, I believe. Like, and another thing is the I think the marketing discipline, what we teach in the universities, it has to change. Things have evolved big time. I always give this example, like like when you are in something, and you can't really comprehend the change happening to that system when you're in a system. For example, when we are living in a household, somebody's gaining some weight or losing some weight, we don't notice that
Are
big
you talking
difference.
about us?
No, 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 yes, I'm talking about you guys. No, no, no. Seriously, when somebody comes over who visits us after 6 months and say, "Hey, Sabji, you have gained some weight or lost some weight," then they make you feel like, okay, oh my God, like your own family never mentions that, if you will. So you got to be immune to these changes, and we have become immune to people who have been staying with one vendor, especially those people who are listening, you folks, maybe some execs will watch this somewhere. Like if you have stayed in one company for last 20 plus years, you have some blind spots. If you think you don't, um, you're kidding yourself, I think. Like you have to listen to the vendors who are in your domain, and also not only that, adjacent industries, so how they approach stuff. How I always think like I have made a lot of software in my life, and I think about like how we build systems and all that stuff day in day out. And I also look at how the movies are made, right? People come together, they do a project and leave, and can we do it, can we build software that way? How the microservices are being built right now, what's the this confluence or convergence of technologies which is making that happen, like thinking at different levels, economic level, technical, and socio-economic, and then also thinking about like how the money is cheap these days, the rates are low, what impact that has on the investments or startups and all kind of stuff. Like there are streams of information, if you will. Well, in machine learning, we call it features.
Yeah.
Like more
Uh,
features you put into a model, the better, richer the model is. Go ahead,
you,
sir.
you you bring up a really good point, and it kind of, I think it dovetails into um, influence. Like, what is influence?
Yeah.
Is domain? How much would we weight, right? If we were looking at this on a scale, how much would we weight domain experience
Yeah.
in looking at someone's influence? And it's hard to measure. It's hard to measure, and there's no technology right now, Sarbjeet, that said that can scrape your LinkedIn profile, not yet, at least, maybe there will be, to say, okay, this individual has worked in the top 1,000 companies over the last 25 years of his career, and he's held this title, and that title. There's nothing unless we do that manually, right? There's no way to scale that. So there's things that we do have access to, like follower count, right? Audience size
Yeah.
is one. How, what, and Tim is an expert at this, certainly, but relevance. How often is a particular group of individuals or one individual talking about topics that matter to your business? Do they have authority? And then the resonance, which is, engagement. When you're posting on LinkedIn, are people liking it, commenting on it, sharing it? Are people watching your videos? Are people retweeting it? And sorry about, there's kids across the street. So the and that is a dilemma, quite honestly, that we not, it's not that we face, but that we have to talk through with clients, because when they say, well, yeah, this person has 500,000 followers and this one only has 15,000 followers, why are you recommending the one with 5,000 followers? Right. So there's a level of education as well needed when talking with clients. So Tim, I'd love your thoughts on this, and then Sarbjeet, certainly I know you have an opinion on this as well.
Well, Brito, I think you're also very modest because you're market leading in the sort of insights and analytics part, and you also know and have relationships with hundreds of influencers, especially in the tech space. So you're definitely the authority on selecting influencers. I think from a technology standpoint, and I've got relationships with a lot of the influence community as well. What we've realized is that you can only go so far. We can give a picture of how much engagement people are getting on different platforms. And it's important on the B2B side to dig into LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, podcasts, Forbes, social audio, and they're different to the Instagram, Snapchat and TikTok. So there are challenges within those platforms. It's important to get the insights right from the data standpoint. But the other side, when I met a lot of influencers in person, and they just said, do you know what, on Friday I don't work. On Thursday is a perfect time for a brand to get in touch with me. On Wednesday, I like to write my blog. So I look at the content from the previous week. I almost thought of it like a journalist briefing, like the kind of features that the publications would post in the next 12 months, and think it's no different from journalists like asking PR professionals to come to them with the stories at the right time, because you just need to know how that journalist works and what they write about. And there's absolutely nothing in the B2B world. So Sarbjeet, I mean, you obviously have your own personal week, and if brands want to work with you, they have to understand how you work, what your personal routine is, what your expertise is, as well as your social influence. So how can you possibly capture all of that? It's impossible. So the only way to do it is for you to actually, showcase that and to actually communicate that directly so that brands can discover you. So I think that, as a social media analytics firm, we obviously want to pioneer technology, but there is a limit to that, and no one is like you, Sarbjeet. You are a unique entity, and I think that's the beauty of it, and that's why it's so challenging. Because a lot of people in influence marketing say, "I'd love to do it, but I don't have too much time." And I think what they mean by that is they just want to press a button which can advertise their content. They would prefer to work with influencers, but you have to get to know someone on a personal level, and that's why they hire agencies like the Zeno Group. And yeah, so I think it's a fascinating challenge, and analytics are just part of the picture. Would love to get your take on that subject.
Yeah, I think ideas like magnify in meanings when we collaborate, right? I think the collaboration is the key. I've seen that. Many people have told me like how they see me. I always ask them, right? And I also always give them my honest 2 cents, without being too harsh on them. That okay, this is how I see you. Maybe this is an area of improvement, and I hear it from others as well. And they tell me that they see me as connecting other people, connecting with other thought leaders, if you will. I didn't want to use that word earlier, like that term, thought leader, because you can't call yourself a thought leader, or it's a. Sometimes people don't like these terms, right? They, I think everybody is a thought leader at certain level. Some people are like in this narrow band. Some people are like wide band. And we before we kicked off, I think recording, we talked about the horizontal sort of career paths versus vertical in technology, especially. You can stay in healthcare as a technologist all your life, career life, or you can stay in financials and banking, and the the functional side of that as well as technology side, right? But there are some technologists who are horizontal. They know how to scale systems. They know how cloud works, that the economics of cloud, or whatever, like whatever technology you take it, or storage, you take it. Everybody uses it. So I think um, how do you I don't know where I'm going with my thought right now.
No, I think
How,
I tell you what was you make it such a really important point, because a lot of people try to leverage influences that are influential in AI, for example, but their content that they want to push out is AI in automotive or AI in
yeah,
healthcare.
yeah,
And the person with the most amount of followers can speak about AI on a surface level, but they're really a marketer or a publisher or a consultant with a massive social following. And there's a real challenge where what we've seen is a better combination is to get an industry expert that would never ever call themselves an influencer, that just loves automotive or
exactly.
loves healthcare.
Yeah,
You also want the person who is maybe a big AI influencer that has those social amplification, the networks, because them being part of the conversation, they will promote it and they will be your alternative paid media strategy. And then you get someone, to your point, Brito, about getting your exec leader or your subject matter expert in on the conversation. And then suddenly you've got amplification, you've got authenticity, you've got expertise, and then you've got the connection between your exec leader on an ongoing basis, because when they post on social, they will suddenly get thousands of views on their content, and then their network will also be part of the action. So I think you bring up a really good point, Subject, about functional versus horizontal and expertise, and we all appreciate that, but I think the industry has a lot of catching up to do.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
think
would
it.
just, oh,
Yeah, go
please.
ahead. So
Out.
I don't want to lose my thought here. Like, hold on to your thought, Michael, for just a second.
No
I
problem.
think my goal when I talk in panel discussions and or I present somewhere is to introduce people with just with one extra aspects of that domain, if you will, right? Like if I can add even one thing to their thinking, like one other aspect, if you will, which they usually don't think about. It can be economics, or it can be like a rate of interest, like how it impacts startups. I mean, like people usually don't connect those dots, right? The money is cheap. That means, like, what does that mean? Like there's a lot of noise out in the market. That means your narrative has to stand out. That means this. There's so many implications of each variable, if you will, and thinking from different angles, looking at the same problem from different angle. I think that is what, um, whatever we call them, influencers, thought leaders, they bring to the table. I think another thing is that when marketing teams lead these programs at these big brands, I think they miss a big thing. I believe the one part is the marketing side. Like you want to tell your narrative, your story to your potential buyers, to your potential employees. You want to entice them to work with you, or your partners. But the big part is like what you're building, like how you want to change what you build, right? So because I believe these people who can't sleep at night thinking about the industry what they are in, um, they can bring in a lot of know-how about like how the products can be built. So I think the influencers can be used very meaningfully in the product roadmaps, and tying them to the product management side of your things, when the creation side of things, not only just the sales or marketing. That's I strongly believe that.
It's funny. SAP has a SAP Community Network, I believe, is the name of the community, and it's for employees and customers and technologists to go in, and it's kind of a forum, if you will. So but it's all public, right? So the data, it's the forum conversations, almost like if you go to like the Apple forums or the Mac forums, it's the same thing, but it's hosted by SAP. It's branded SAP, and all of the information is public, and so. And I say that because when I look at influence, there's great technology out there, right? And Onalytica is the leading technology provider out there on the B2B side. And no, I was not paid to say that. I truly believe that. But to your point, Tim, it doesn't give you everything, right? So it's up to a manager or the brand to do due diligence and look at the context. And I think that's where thought leadership is in. And for example, if I find an influencer and he has, he or she checks all the boxes, I don't stop there. I have a team that then Googles this person and looks, is this person mentioned in the media? Is this person mentioned in some analyst report? Are they mentioned in a forum or on Reddit? Or, is there any other communities that are talking about this influencer to validate his or her influence? And the reason why I brought up SAP is because a lot of technology brands have communities like that. And when we think about influence, it's not always, and Tim, I've talked to you about this before, and this is kind of my perspective on, what I would call like organic influencer engagement or analysis, which is let's find the influencers and let's understand what is top of mind for them without even reaching out. Like, let's not even, we don't even have to follow them on social media. We just identify who they are and track their conversation. I hate saying it, but yes, track their conversations, whether those conversations are on Twitter or those conversations are in some forum, and use that as intelligence to then innovate, right? Or, to feed into that product roadmap, or even giving it to salespeople to understand, what are the top issues that technologists are facing when they're investing in technology, and then being able to provide thoughts and feedback and thought leadership to then address that pushback. So that's my take on it. But it's not easy, right? It requires a lot of work. There's no button you can press that
I think
says this is the perfect influencer for you.
Yeah, I think that is the challenging part. I think the differentiation lies in the nuance thing, like very small little things, which, as you both said, Tim and Michael, that you know everybody's unique, right? So how do you take that nuance out? Like how do you get those things out? And I mean, we talked about. I think Tim mentioned that like we look at the like, I don't know, maybe it was Michael. You said like on LinkedIn, we curate that. I mean, only if I can put all the stuff I do on LinkedIn. The big problem we have is like we can't write meaningfully what we do on LinkedIn. I am more than cloud, you know, guy. I have other aspects to my life. For example, I have a master's in economics, and I bring in those things in, into my talks. But people don't know that, right? For example, I mean, it's hard to convey that through LinkedIn. How will I do that? I can list my degree, but like people don't know. Like I weave that into my thought processor now, right? So I like cricket. I use analogies from that sort of sport. I love cooking. I use those analogies a
But I
lot.
think I think those are that's amazing. And what I see the trends are is that more and more people on social are just are showing their personal selves,
Yeah,
but also the fact that you love cricket and cooking and all of that kind of stuff. That's why like Brito, Zeno Group, Onalytica, that's our jobs to know also your interests, so that if someone has an opportunity and they want to build a relationship with you, then they can know that you're into cooking and cricket, not in a creepy way, but in a collaborative way of having good conversations. So the data is out there. You can put it on your LinkedIn, but also our marketplace is about you being able to put in your interests and show up as a human, because what we're seeing is a shift from marketing, brand, your logo communication, which no one's paying attention to, advertising less effective nowadays, and people want the peer-to-peer human connection. So everything that you embody, Sarbjeet, is what we're trying to capture and then connect with brands so that there's the right partnerships. Now, this is very easy with one-to-one, but if we're trying to do this across many different clients and like thousands of influencers, then it becomes a real challenge. So
Mhm.
I think it's really, I think you explained it perfectly well with like describing who you are, and that it's hard for you to actually explain that with the mediums. But I think that's where technology needs to change.
yeah. I think I actually really loved. I Google search myself like once a month or so. Like what's out there, right? So
You you
make
Google you
sure.
Google yourself. I do that like every other day.
Yeah, yeah. So like I Googled recently, and I clicked on the videos because I was looking for a video link to send to somebody, and that's what I usually do. Google yourself and look at the videos. And I noticed that Google can look into the videos now and create chapters from that. Not when you put 00, 00, and then from your description. No, they are they uh, sort of use the what do you call it, NLP on the back end, right? They listen to your conversation, the audio part of the video, and they parse out the keywords. If you after this you can Google it, maybe
Yep.
your own videos. It creates the chapters in the video. Like I have a video talking to John Furrier about cloud computing. They took out the IBM acquisition as a separate chapter and all that stuff. I was stunned that they are using their machine learning on the back end to create enhancing the search. And a platform like yours, Tim, I think it has to enhance that search, I believe. I don't know. I don't want to build your roadmap here on the fly, but like take into account those developments, like just going into the videos inside those and transcribing them, and then searching through that, and then creating that sort of those like who is talking about what, and then
Mhm.
I think there should be a bank of the key terms in the different industries, right? And who is mentioning that, how often those are being mentioned. And another thing is which Michael said, how often somebody is being mentioned in some other people's articles and stuff like that. That's, I mean, the Google was number 6 or 7 search engine, right? And their mantra was that mentions, right, which other sites are linking to the other sites. So I think we have to build a platform like that in B2B sort of thought leadership or influencer sort of domain, where we can curate these people who are there, who are thought leaders, who are forward thinkers, and they are willing to talk. I mean, that's the
Yep.
key. And they are willing to talk, because there's a lot of people. I always think there are a lot of people who know, like, 10x more than I do, but they are not, they can't talk for some reason, personality types and or contractual agreements, or fear of, like, vendor, IP leak and whatever, you name it. But I
Yeah.
think a platform which enhances that searchability is the key.
Yeah. So I think we're at time. Tim, if you want to just maybe wrap us up and any closing thoughts, this has been a fantastic discussion, and I'm excited to, maybe you guys need to talk one-on-one and talk about the roadmap.
Yeah,
Sounds like that could be a good
Sorry,
idea.
my bad. I can't continue
no, I would.
myself.
I think it's great, and obviously what you said, Brito, about having an agency, a vendor, and an influencer like in one conversation is a great dynamic, because you got the three different perspectives. But as a technology provider, we're going to try and provide some solutions as part of the overall solution. I think just the exciting space in B2B marketing, there's just so much space for innovation. I know Brito, that you're very passionate about that, and yeah, influence marketing is probably, I don't know how many billion, but it might be 5 billion instead of like 50 billion in terms of what the marketplace is actually worth over the next 5 years. But it's still a big marketplace. There's still a big space for innovation. So I think it's really exciting, and I think the challenges of just brands and influencers getting to know each other better, communicating on a human to human level, I think is the real win here. And then we can all just show up as ourselves, and hopefully focus on creating that great content. And then of course it has to work for KPIs and what brands objectives are looking for. It has to work for the influencer as well, but with the increased intelligence, it has a much better chance of working smoothly. So I'm very positive about the future. I think I think B2B is behind B2C, but I think there's a lot of innovation happening. So look forward to continued conversation.